cars, on a bus, and you go to the next town, or a few towns away, to practice and to play. Most of you, also your coach, great coach that he is probably not on your faculty. He may not even be a teacher for that matter. That's just a statement of fact. It's nothing critical. My point is, without belaboring it, is hockey is a sport that if you choose to allow it to be, you'll be out there on a limb all by yourself. And the only time that you're going to hear from a building administrator, someone like me, with his tie cinched up at that time and his jacket on, will be when it hits the fan, when something goes wrong. That's just a fact. And that's not when you want to hear from your principal or your assistant principal or your AD. That's not when you want to hear from them. So to the captains, I have this message. You're in the school every day. Stay in touch with your classmates. Stay in touch with your teachers. Stay in touch with your administrators. Promote your sport from within in a positive way. Encourage those people to come to the rink and see you play. Show them the great sport that we have. Get them out of that building, down the street, to the next town over, whatever the case may be. I guarantee you, because I've seen it many times, I guarantee you that if you can get them to one hockey game, they will be hooked. You got a second thing you need to do, and that's leadership. First and foremost, it starts with yourself. You've got to not only play great out there on the ice for your coach and your team, but in the locker room, on the bench, and in particular out there in the hallways of your school, in the classrooms, Saturday night, at the parties, all of that business, you've got to be exemplars of, just the best young men you can be. And moreover, you've got to keep your teammates in check. The last thing that you want to have happen is that you're having a pretty good season, a very good season, and you look like you're headed, for a pretty good shot, and it may be contending for a state title, and something bad happens, and the next thing you know, guys are bounced off the team, they're suspended from school, et cetera, and that kind of thing. Bad enough that is. It gives your team a black eye. It gives our sport a black eye. You don't want to do that. Your coaches can't be everywhere that you're going to be. They're not even going to be everywhere in the locker room or on the bench, down the far end of the bench, or the back seats of the bus. They're certainly not going to be at those parties on Saturday night, or somebody acting like a goofball in math class third period. That's your job, to help your coaches by showing some leadership, saying and doing the right things to keep those guys in line, so that they are not a detriment to the effort you're putting forth, especially at a time in the season when it's crucial. Keep them focused on what they need to be focused on, both when they go over the boards and they're on the ice, but also in regard to all those other issues. If you do, and you can do that successfully, then besides winning games, you'll have done something even better. You'll help younger guys to grow into maturity and be decent young men. And that's what we look for from you guys. We expect you to show that leadership in the way you play on the ice and the way you conduct yourself off the ice. So, having said all that, in my little sermon for the evening, I want to welcome all those coaches back who are back, those who are new, and all you guys that are captains. Welcome to the hockey fraternity. We welcome you, and we wish you well. Have a great season. Be very competitive. We'll see you in the rinks. Thanks, guys.
As I said, we're going to try to be brief and very much to the point. And if I had to take what Tom said and put just a thimbleful of emphasis back there, I would say to the young men who are sitting here tonight, you are the creme de la creme. And you need to practice that high altitude that you've achieved by working so hard to become the leadership people on your team. It's a wonderful thing to have this opportunity. It's a very rare thing. clutch it, make it so special when you sit back 30 years down the road and you think about this hockey season, you know that it was the very best season you could have. I'd like to introduce the president of NAHOA. Randy Zaritsky is with us tonight. He's going to talk some about rules changes. He's going to introduce, you don't get up here, Randy, till I finish. It's okay, but you know, there's other guys. Randy is the president of NAHOA, the state of Connecticut. With him this evening is the vice president, Mr. Riccitelli. Wave, there you go. Vice president of NAHOA. And the referee-in-chief, spells it differently. The guy that, when we get stuck on a rule interpretation, this is the guy we call. This is the guy we call. Mr. Lev Torgerson. Lev. And these gentlemen are going to take over now and talk about rule changes, points of emphasis, and the perspective of the game from the guys who are wearing the shirts and making the decisions and help us play the game. Randy?
Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody on behalf of the Connecticut NAHOA chapter. We're going to talk a little bit today about a few different things. Number one, we're going to talk about the rule changes, which there's a sheet out that everybody pick it up off the desk in the front. There's a green sheet. You don't necessarily run through it. I have somebody that's going to run through a referee sheet. We'll run through all the rule changes. Along with that, there is an addendum, which is on that as well. There's also one on the white sheet, which is a couple of edits to the rule book that came out after it was published. We're going to go through that, as well as the point of emphasis, which is on that green sheet on the back as well. So those are a couple of things we're going to go through today. We're going to go through some talk about, and this is especially for the coaches and actually for the players as well, maybe a little bit of education about game sheets and what major penalties, misconducts, game misconducts, what they can end up meaning to you when it comes down to the end of the season and how it can hurt or help you during the end of the year. We'll have a little discussion about sportsmanship, and then a little bit about handling confrontation or problems. We'll talk about that. And finally, I'll end up talking about our evaluation program from the coach's standpoint, so everybody here will understand what the process is to evaluate officials, how to use it, and how important it is going forward for us, especially to evaluate our officials so we know number one is what we need to work on as officials, but number two is once the tournament comes at the end of the year, this evaluation system is instrumental in making sure that we have the best possible officials out in that tournament, working all the way through to Yale at the end of the season. So we'll start out with the rule changes and the point